Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Gonna wait for you guys to trickle in. How's everyone doing? Waiting for you all to trickle in. Good morning. If this is your first time tuning in, definitely comment. Let us know it's your first time. Let me know where you're tuning in from. If it's not your first time, still give me a shout out. Let me know where you're tuning in from. I don't know why my Instagram is like a funny color, but good morning from Barbados. Oh, I'm so jealous. Like I totally wish I was in Barbados right now. Um, Good morning from Brooklyn. That's actually I used to live in Brooklyn. Good morning, Manny. Okay, let me introduce myself. My name is Aisha Chidole. I'm an immigration attorney. I represent clients all over the United States with their family immigration matter. So your location doesn't matter because immigration is a federal law, and I help those internationally that are trying to immigrate via their family to the United States. So you have to have somebody in the United States that can petition for you. You can reach me by calling 407-995-6567 to schedule a consultation with the firm, or you can send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. And as I always give the disclaimer, these are our only two numbers. If somebody else is pinging you or DMing you or commenting in any of my comment box, whether it's on YouTube, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, those are not my phone numbers. These are the only two phone numbers for this firm. So please do not allow anybody to spam you or defraud you. Okay. So and feel free to ask your questions in the comment box. Once I finish talking about what I want to, I will try to answer as many as I can with the time that I have. So today I want to talk about, VAWA and, forms of nonviolent or non-physical abuse. I know that the last class, we had a lot of conversation. I said the last class, the last slide. Well, I guess this is a teaching session. The last live, I know a lot of people had asked about stuff like that. And I said, I'll do one. I still don't feel like I have enough time to get through it all, but I'm going to try to get through some. So if this is your first time, um, ever hearing about the VAWA, let me just quickly explain that before I get into what I'm getting into. So VAWA is a form of relief that is granted. VAWA basically stands for Violence Against Women's Act. And essentially, even though it said Violence Against Women's, this act is for men, children, and women and spouses and parents. Maybe at some point they will change the name of the act to include everybody, but don't be worried by the name and thinking that you don't qualify if you're male, or if you're a parent or if you're a child. And the idea of this rule or this act is that if you as a spouse has been abused by your U.S. citizen or green card holder spouse, if you as a child have been abused by your green card holder or U.S. citizen parent or step parent, and if you as a parent has been abused by your U.S. citizen child, you can get your green card on your own as a self petitioner based on that abuse. Okay. Um, each of them have different requirements as far as what constitutes abuse and what makes you eligible. One of the things that a lot of people ask is, well, what if I came into the country without inspection? What if I crossed the border? What if I overstayed my visa? What if my spouse is a legal permanent resident? Can I still get a green card in those situations? In most cases, the answer is yes. So this is one of the types of relief that allows you to get your green card, even though you don't have any proof of how you entered into the country, as long as you can prove that, there's been extreme cruelty. And I know you guys have heard me talk about different things that are required to prove you are a victim basically of abuse. And aside from being a victim, you still need to meet certain other requirements, like the relationship, if it's with step parents, or, well, the step parent rule has actually changed as of February, where before, if your parents became divorced, then you won't be eligible anymore. But now, even if your parents are divorced, you can still apply if your step parent was abusive to you while you guys were married. Note that with children, you have to be married before your parents have to be married before you turn 18 if it's a step parent relationship. And then, let me see what else just changed recently. Well, nothing else changed recently, I think, with the parents. So, of course, you still have to show good moral character, meaning you're criminal, you don't have crimes of moral turpitude, and then, you have like a clean record or things that they don't consider serious, at least in the last 3 years, with spousal relationships, you still have to show cohabitation either before marriage or during marriage. But let's just focus right now on the abuse factor. So one of the key things is proving extreme cruelty. And extreme cruelty can be proven in many ways. And I've talked about this a lot of times, where a lot of times, immigrants, what our standards of cruelty are very different than, say, somebody from the United States. And I can say that authoritatively as somebody who grew up in a third world country, and you observe certain things, and I see that a lot with my own clients, especially when you screen people, like sometimes, I might be screening somebody and they will say to me, oh yeah, I mean, he's not like, and I'm not picking on guys because this happens to both men and women. So please nobody comment that women do this too. He's not really violent like that. Like he doesn't hit me like that. But he does punch the wall. He does punch the wall or flings a plate and he broke that glass or he broke that window or he pulled off the hinges off of the door, right? But he's not violent, because in their mind they're conditioned that the person has to be beating you up the entire time to really qualify for physical abuse. But the thing is that abuse can be very much psychological. Abuse can be very much putting somebody in apprehension of danger. Abuse can be emotional. Abuse can be sexual, and when I say sexual, it doesn't have to always be marital rape or molestation. There are many ways, and I'll get into some of those examples if time permits. And there is also abuse of the legal system. So and then financial abuse. And this happens a lot to both women and men, but we generally see that with men, especially if you come from a culture where, it's a very patriarch society where it's like, as a man, you feel that you have to take care of the household and your wife knows that. And all of a sudden, somebody that used to work, she decides, you know what, I'm not working anymore. Like you handle the bills. After all, I'm going to get you a green card anyway. So you pay all the bills. And I want this designer bag. I want this Range Rover. I want that Chanel purse. I don't care how you're going to make the money. Figure it out. Just get it for me. So, let's walk through some of them. So, from an emotional and mental standpoint, it's one and of the same. Some of the things that we will generally see is the things that come out of the mouth to put somebody down. If, for instance, your spouse has another child, one way to really mess a parent's head up or a parent's mind up is to talk about their parenting, to tell them that they're not good parents, to tell them that, oh, you're here, you left your child in the other country or whatever it is. What kind of mother are you? What kind of father are you that you don't take care of it? Those are, I don't know if you guys have ever heard the phrase fighting words. Like those are things that can make people really question who they are and why they're here and, who they are as a person and, basically the role that they play, or you have people saying, oh, you're so fat, like why don't you go to the gym, go work out, like you're so chubby, like you never used to be this skinny, or somebody just bore a child for 9 months and you're telling the person, why haven't you lost weight? look at all the other people, or even forcing you to go to the gym. I mean, of course the gym is healthy and people want to have a healthy lifestyle, but when you feel that somebody's basically doing that because they want you to fit a certain mold or a certain physique. There's nothing we've not seen. We've seen where a spouse is basically like, oh, you're wearing a skirt that is above your knee, you're a slut. You're a prostitute. You just want everybody to come to you. So these are all things that cause like a mental damage to somebody, where you make the person feel less than, and make them question who they are as a person. And even for the guys, like sometimes, women can attack them in based on their sexuality, or based on the way they perform in bed, or say, oh, I have a guy that's does way better than you, was was basically did wonderful things and you suck. And for a lot of men, that is horrible. And it, no matter how we as a society wants to present, oh, men are strong or whatever it is, that has to hurt. That hurts. And a lot of people think about stuff like that, and it makes them second guess themselves. You have people where they're like, I don't ever want to be with another person because I just don't feel like I'm good enough. Like, I can't tell you guys how many times, we've had people that, once they understood what they qualified for and we put in the application and things started moving positively, confess, that they wanted to kill themselves, or the ones that have tried to kill themselves, but it didn't happen. And that's why, I think last week somebody said, oh, VAWA is not fair because there are other people that are abused by others. And I got very offended by it because I was like, what do you mean by that? There's so many people suffering, and they shouldn't have to suffer. People shouldn't be committing suicides because they're in relationships. I've gone to USCIS interviews where the officer specifically was like, they've seen so many people that come into the interviews and you can see that they're being abused, but they can't overstep their bounds. They can't overstep their boundary and say, you probably should be filing a VAWA petition, not a marriage-based petition. So those are some of the emotional stuff that goes on. And then, of course, there's the psychological stuff where it has a lot to do with gaslighting, making you feel like you're the one who's crazy or mental, or there's something wrong with you, or saying no wonder you can't find any man, no wonder you were abused when you were a child, no wonder you got raped as a kid, no wonder your parents didn't like you, no wonder you couldn't find any woman, so things like that affect people psychologically. And so even though that nobody has punched you in the face, that is a gut punch. That is stuff that makes you start to think, man, you know, all these things that happen to me, I am the one causing it. It is my fault that it's happening to me, And the thing is, a lot of people, especially immigrants, these are the ways that sometimes people talk. And so, you just kind of accept it and don't think it's abusive. I'll use this example of weight. Let's talk about weight, and especially with women. It's like, for instance, men get this grace where they can gain some weight and nobody's gonna be like, oh, you're so fat, but let a woman just gain like 10 pounds, in this country, of course, we're conditioned to not speak about people's weight because it's really rude. But you just step off the plane and you go to your home country. I mean, you might even be like a size 6. And it's like, oh my God, you're so fat. You got so fat. You're so chubby. You need to lose weight, you know? And so a lot of times, if you have a spouse who is supposed to love you, unconditionally, and is constantly attacking you about that, or a parent that is constantly attacking you about that to the point where you're having like depression, or an eating disorder, all these things are psychological abuse. They're psychological abuse. And then when we get to the part about intimacy and sexual cruelty, people automatically think, oh, Well, like my husband, or my wife, it's not like they raped me or anything like that. Well, first of all, let's talk about marital rape, because some people believe that if you're married and your spouse says no, you can force them to still have sex with you. That is marital rape. If your spouse is saying no, they don't want to do something, and you're pinning them down to the bed and forcing them to do it, whether or not you're married, that is marital rape. Okay. So that is, of course, a very, very obvious form of abuse. But then there's also abuse in withholding intimacy from your spouse, in an extremely cruel way where, some people can keep malice. Like you can get into an argument with your spouse and decide, what, for the next 3 months you need to sleep on the couch. You cannot come into this room, you cannot touch me, you cannot do this, I don't want you around me, or whatever it is you know I'm laughing. Someone commented, "Is touching you in your sleep marital rape?" Yes, So if it's on consent, if it's not consented, it is. So if it, unless that is something that you're okay with your spouse doing, but most people are not okay with that. So you made me lose my train of thoughts. But and then the same thing with children, like where if a spouse, maybe, as a spouse, most people have to talk amongst themselves to decide, do we want to have children or do we not want to have children? And you guys might have come to an agreement that you're going to have children, and then your spouse is on birth control, right? Without you knowing that they're on birth control, and you're wondering what is going on, why aren't we having kids, why aren't we having a baby? But your spouse is, come to find out that your spouse is doing this, on the side. Or the same thing where, your spouse wants you to be protected because, they're not ready to be pregnant or to have a child. And you continuously, maybe have unprotected sex, or force them to have unprotected sex because you want to force them to get pregnant. Or you tell them, I'm filing for your papers, I'm married to you, I'm a green card holder, so if I tell you to sleep with me, you must sleep with me. And then you have really extreme cruelty. This is just extreme cruelty as on it stands, where sometimes you can, these tend to fall under financial, but where your spouse doesn't have, and I'll talk about just this example, and then I can answer questions. There's just so much more. I can't get through this in like 30 minutes, but I'm just giving you guys examples of things that when they happen, don't just accept that's okay. So like in financial situations where a spouse is so reliant on the other spouse for their finances that it even keeps them from leaving, because they literally don't know where they're going to live, how they're going to survive. Like the spouse sometimes will not buy them feminine products, just to even get by, no soap, or to leave the house. I've had a client where the spouse literally was like, you know what? I'm going to punish you. I'm going to turn off the air conditioner, like the heat and air, and I'm going to leave the house for like a month, and left her and her children in the house with no air, no heat, no money, nothing. That is a form of cruelty that is not only financial, but it's emotional, it is physical. So you see here that they were not punched in the face, but that is physical abuse, because you're putting them at risk of dying of either a heat stroke or hypothermia, depending on what the weather is, or starvation. So there are just many things. So never ever think, oh, we didn't just punch each other, so I can't possibly have abuse. So it's one of those things that you definitely want to get screened for, to see if you have it. But as I always tell you guys, outside of proving extreme cruelty, there's still many things that you have to prove. It's just one of the factors. So once you prove extreme cruelty, we still have to show cohabitation. You cannot bypass this. Cohabitation, while there's no requirement of, oh, did you guys live together for 2 months versus you live together for 2 years. There's no requirement of time, but you must show cohabitation. The good news is that as of February of 2022, your cohabitation, your proof of living together could be before you married, or after you're married. So anyway, those are just a few of the forms of abuse that can happen that's not physical. Let's see some of the questions. I know I have a ton of questions here. Let me answer some of them. Good morning. I have a question. I got a letter. In 180 days, I'll get my work permit, and 180 days has passed. I'm pretty sure there's no such letter that said you would get your work permit in 180 days. There's nothing like that. You probably got a letter saying that if you submitted your work permit, like a renewal for your work permit, what you probably got was a renewal where basically it says, your receipt acts as a work permit for 180 days if you meet X, Y, and Z criteria and stuff like that. That's all it's saying. It doesn't mean that you get it in 180 days. Right now, and of course, there is a backlog in renewal work permits where they're taking like a year. So it's important that if you're 6 months to expiration, that you're renewing your application, your work permit application. And I talked about this last week, and I will let you guys know more as it's forthcoming. But one of the things that USCIS basically is working on is basically what we call premium processing, where they will allow you to process your work permit quicker if you pay a premium fee. And so we'll find out more on this and what exactly the requirements are in June. So I'll let you guys know once those come out. Okay, let's see what the question. Manny says, I filed my tax return both in 2020 and 2021, but I got a letter 4833C. They need verification. Can I apply for VAWA if my tax return is still in process? So you don't need your tax return to apply for VAWA unless you're using your tax return to show proof of a bona fide relationship. If that is the case, you can still submit your application. And then once your tax return is ready, you can just download it from the IRS website, click on IRS, get tax transcript, and then you can supplement or amend your application to include it. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Facebook, I'm coming to you on YouTube. So good. Lisa Blah said, good morning. I did biometrics. I got a prima facie. Now I'm still waiting on my work permit. They sent me a letter saying that in 180 days, I'll get my work permit. 180 days has passed. Honestly, like I just told you, I just answered that question. It's 180 days, meaning that you have an extension for 180 days. They can't tell you that you're going to get your work permit in 180 days. Okay, so let's see. Imani on YouTube says, do we have past existing approved VAWA cases with non-physical abuse and with no evidence of emotional abuse? Who's we? I don't understand what you're saying when you ask we, but if you're asking about me, of course, why would I be talking about it if we don't? Pratima says, can we appeal a revocation and get a positive response from USCIS for VAWA cases? With you, I would definitely need to do a consult to find out exactly what exactly happened. Were you approved for a VAWA case and then you received a notice of intent to revoke? Was that after like your 485 interview? If that's the case, call me, schedule a consult, and then we can see what's going on with you. Sandra says, good morning. How are you? How is your Easter? Easter was wonderful. Thank you. Katie says, how long is VAWA taking right now? Most VAWA cases take about 2 years to 2.5 years. Whenever I give you guys timelines, like I said, there are always going to be some people that there's, is approved before or after the timeline, but most people fall on that timeline. I-360s are one of the things that they're definitely also considering for faster premium processing. So as it comes and as the news develops, I will keep you guys posted. Shari case, is it possible for a VAWA case to be taken 6 years or more? Well, that's not normal. So if your case is taken 6 years or more, you want to consider either suing USCIS or congressional assistance if you haven't tried it to get a decision on your case. Good morning, ma'am. Is one what since I filed my I-485? I've not received a letter from my interview. Are you asking it's been 1 year? If it's 1 year, hopefully you'll receive your interview soon. Depending on your field office, I don't know your field office. Every field office is different, and most though will be somewhere between 12 to 15 months. So hopefully you get something soon. My husband left for 2 week work trip, came home and says, I lost 7 pounds. And I say, oh, that's great. Oh, and he says, looks like you found them. Yeah. So Gabs Cruz, that is an example of behavior that could be abusive. So when we have something like that, we look for a pattern of behavior. So like, one time is he's an ass, for doing that one time, but will look like a pattern of behavior and what is causing for you. So like if your husband is consistently making references to your weight, consistently making references to what you eat in your plate or in your food, to the point where you're literally afraid to eat in front of him, or you want to hide and eat, or if he's coming you're like quickly stuffing the food, then you've moved from just a jerk to consistent abusive territory where you're truly fearful of how your husband will respond to you, if you're eating. um all right, let's see what else we have here. Destin says, when VAWA is already filed, does someone still need psychological evaluation? The answer is it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. You can still submit a psychological evaluation even though your VAWA case is already pending. Personally, I think that everyone who experiences extreme cruelty and abuse should see a therapist. I know that a lot of immigrants, we come from societies where it's like, oh, why am I telling somebody else my problem? Let me just take it to Jesus. Let me take it to God, or take it to, whatever you believe in. But it helps. It helps. Not only does it help, with your immigration papers, but it also helps for your own mental wellness and healing. A lot of people hold on to so much. You hear about people that go out and commit suicide, or go out and kill people and shoot people and all these things. And I wonder if a lot of those people, if they were being counseled and feeling heard, and somebody being able to say, what can we do? Let's try these things to work on your mental health, if those things would have changed. So sometimes you don't have to sit and suffer alone. Sometimes it helps going to talk to somebody, and that person basically acknowledging that what you went through is horrible, and that can do a lot for your healing. But from an immigration perspective, of course, every psychological evaluation submission is certainly helpful to your case, because it's further evidence, it's further credible evidence of what you went through. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to take only one more question. Um, 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 so Big Bag says, any information about Cameroonian TPS? Well, so Cameroonian TPS is forthcoming, as you guys know. President Biden's administration and Immigration Secretary have designated Cameroon as a temporary protected status country. And what that means, for those of you who don't know, is that Cameroonians will be allowed to stay in the United States for 18 months without fear of deportation, and will also be able to work and get their work permits to work in the United States. Right now, we have to wait for it has to go through the Federal Register, and there's like sort of like a timeline, and then they will now announce when the applications can start being put in. But if you came into the country after April 14th, you will not be eligible. So you have to have entered into the country before April 14th. And then one of the things that you want to do while you're waiting for it is just start gathering evidence of proof of being in the country before then. I can talk about, I'm running out of time, so I can talk about some examples of things you can do to gather as evidence that you've been in the country. But I have to jump off, guys. But thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back on live on Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you can subscribe to my channel on YouTube, hit the notification button, Facebook, Instagram, so you can be notified when I go on live. And I'll be happy to answer your questions. If I didn't answer your questions, call our office to schedule a consultation with us, 407-995-6567, or WhatsApp 404-333-8751. All right, guys, have a